All right, you made it.
Yes, we are in Rome. Conclave begins in a few days. It's really crowded in here. So far, so good. They put the chimney up on the Sistines this morning.
Yeah.
So,
What about the cardinals? Who do you think?
well, I mean, if you're asking who do I think is going to be the next pope, I think you have to be pretty honest. Going there. You have to be pretty honest about the fact that, humanly speaking, the deck is pretty stacked. So if it's just simply a human institution, the church is divine, the church is a human institution, right? So if it's just human, it doesn't look good at all.
Right.
I'm not trying to blast Francis in death. I'm just saying we all know what happened over the past 12 years. And it hasn't been good, to say the least. And so before, his whole 12-year plan was to change the church permanently so that it could never be changed back. So what's the expectation for the conclave? That he set it up so that he could continue, the church would continue in the Francis mode, which means synodality, it means the church of accompaniment, it means the church of the poor.
Maybe a little more diplomacy or sophistication, but that's not the.
Yeah, right.
That's the program.
But see, the thing is, I think I'm really excited to be here. I really am so excited. I think there's anything the Traditional Catholic Press can do. It's to be part of this process and to do whatever we can to support the conservative guys. And so being all depressed and dour about it, I think doesn't do any good. Anybody can come out and say, well, it's just going to be Francis II, it's all over, it doesn't even matter, I don't know, I just find that kind of trite, kind of precious, kind of silly. It might drive up views, but this is the Catholic Church we're talking about. This is the Holy Roman Catholic Church. It's a divine institution. We're always looking, and the expectation is always that God's going to intervene at some point. So what I want to spend the next week doing is looking at some of these issues that have changed. This is my third conclave. And I always talk about Ratzinger. Nobody expected Ratzinger. First they didn't expect him, and then when he was elected, just a few of the squeaky wheel traddies came out there and started blasting him as the modernist with Ronner. He had a tie on this one time, but just look at what happened under Benedict XVI. Did anyone truly expect that? This wasn't even a traditionalist. I agree, but look at how the church was changed under him. There's one example. Traditional Latin Mass came roaring back. Whoever thought that was going to happen when Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger, the guy from the Vatican II, became Benedict XVI? Really amazing thing happened. Why is that? Because the Holy Ghost is always involved in the process. Now, next example, Francis. Okay, I was standing right there when they called Jorge Mario Bergoglio, and I was like, oh my gosh, a South American Jesuit, it's over, And to a large degree, it has been a cataclysmic 12 years, but if you want to see the Holy Ghost in action, look around the world right now. Look at the resurgence, the revival of traditional Catholicism. Look at all the young people. Look at the Latin Mass. The Latin Mass reached such a peak under Francis that they're trying to cancel it. And from everything we can see so far, they're failing. So you have two really great examples of the Holy Ghost at work in his church. One with Ratzinger, the other with Bergoglio. What's this next one going to be? I don't know. But what's fun and really interesting, and I wish we could all have a more constructive conversation about this, if you look at Ed Penton's website, for example, one of the top 10 issues that every single cardinal who has a chance of becoming the next pope, one of the top 10 is the Latin Mass. Where does he stand on the Latin Mass? I can tell you from personal experience, as my third conclave, that for the last two, that was not on the roster. What do these men think of the Latin Mass? The Latin Mass was dead and buried, for example, right? So you can see this resurgence, you can see things changing. And I don't think there's any reason for us to look at the good guys, the more conservative guys, as through rose-colored glasses on the one hand, that they're all Archbishop Lefebvre. No, they're not Archbishop Lefebvre. They all came to where they are now in the spirit of Vatican II. But in the meantime, what they've done, these good ones, they've kept the faith. COVID landed, a global lockdown landed, globalism landed. Bono from U2 was running in out of this place with Pope Francis with little potted trees and plants, and they became this globalist. And people all over the world are like, what the heck? What is going on? Pachamama happened. They brought these little Pachamama things into St. Peter's Basilica, right? And then somebody came along, I happen to know who it was, and threw those into the water, into the Tiber, made international news. And as Cardinal Muller said at the time, the problem wasn't that somebody broke in and took those Pachamama statues and threw out of St. Peter's. The problem is that somebody brought them in, and the person who brought them in happened to be the Pope. So those things had a massive impact on guys that even 20 years ago, 15 years ago, they were still kind of thinking, well, where's the hermeneutic of continuity? We got to get, we got to get Vatican II firmly in. But they were still thinking about those things. But those things have become pipe dreams. They were just silly. And now you have a bunch of cardinals at this conclave who are discussing Latin Mass, who are discussing blessing of gay couples, a scandal that was, So I don't know why we're all convinced it's just going to keep being so evil and terrible, and there's no point in even being here, there's no point in praying, it's just have the lowest expectations for this conclave. No, the direction seems to be in a positive direction. We have more cardinals now that are concerned about the Latin Mass and about orthodoxy than we did with the last conclave, certainly, and many more than the previous conclave. So the direction is what matters, and I think that we're going into this conclave, the direction of a lot of these curial cardinals, these in the Sacred College of Cardinals, is in the direction of tradition, almost despite their Vatican II formation. That's the way I see it, and that would be then my third example of the Holy Ghost intervening. You had the two popes that we gave you, both of which the church flourished under both, in a sense. The counter-revolution flourished under both, even if the church suffered. The counter-revolution did not, it got stronger. And then you have this situation now where you have cardinals, princes of the church who are saying something has to give. This has got to stop now. It's not Catholic anymore, So I think that's, again, if you're looking for signs of how the Holy Ghost works, that, in my opinion, is how he works. And I have every expectation that if it's not this conclave, then it'll be the next one where there'll be an awakening, or the one after that. But the continued counter-revolution, which is a gift of the Holy Ghost, and the inspiration of the Holy Ghost is going to get stronger and stronger and stronger all throughout the world, no matter what happens. So cheer up, smile. This is the Catholic Church in action. She's going through one of her darkest periods right now. Well, there's an opportunity in a few days for that to change. So pray for it. Pray for it and be part of the solution, not the problem, by basically just denigrating this whole solution, this whole process that's going on as a waste of time, and it's going to be evil, bad, and horrible. No, it's not. We don't know. This is the game. Like I said, the game is on. The war is on, and I think we have every reason to have a lot of hope and a lot of reason to pray. Just in the players that are here, the good guys, the conversations that they're having right now, indicating a change in direction in the church, that somebody is aware of the revolution finally at the top and has had enough. So I'm sorry if I sound like Pollyanna, but I'm not all depressed at this conclave. I'm just waiting to see what happens, like everybody else. I'm praying for the best, and I think one way or another, there's going to be good news in a few days.